Good morning and welcome to Sunday School. Before we start today's lesson, I have a question. If I want to know about God, where do I look? That's right, in the Bible. The Bible tells me I can look at all God made and I can figure out there is a God. I can figure out he's big and strong, but that's all I can know. If I want to know if he loves me or what sin is or how to get to heaven, I have to look in the Bible. So we've been going straight through the Gospel of Mark, learning who is this Jesus, this Messiah. And so before we start today's lesson, today we get to chapter 11. So the first 10 chapters of Mark are all about Jesus from his birth all the way to the last week before his crucifixion. So in 10 chapters, we've covered more than 30 years of his life. Now, in the last chapters from 11 to 16, everything's going to happen in just 1 week. Not 30 years, 1 week. We're going to spend weeks and weeks going through this in Sunday school, but I want you to remember every time this just went boom, 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 right through a week. And keep that as we walk through. So it's time. We're going to start off Holy Week. And we're going to start in Mark chapter 11, starting in verse 1. As they approached Jerusalem, they came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives. Jesus sent 2 of his disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you doing this?' tell him, 'The Lord needs it, and will send it back here shortly.'" So they went and found the colt tied outside in the street, tied at a doorway. And as they untied it, some people standing there asked, "What are you doing untying that colt?" They answered as Jesus had told them to, and the people let them go. When they had brought the colt to Jesus, they set their cloaks over it. And he sat on it. Others spread their cloaks on the road. Others spread branches that they had cut in the nearby fields. And those who went ahead were shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest." Jesus entered Jerusalem and went to the temple and looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. So let's go back through this section and make sure that we understand it. There's a lot in here. So when you are traveling in the Holy Land in Israel, it's easy to have a picture in your mind that looks like wherever you grew up. So I am from Iowa. I tend to think of Israel as being flat and fields like Iowa. But that is not what Israel looks like. Israel is mostly mountains. So you can see the mountains here, and desert. And when you are going from Jericho, which is where we were last time, to Jerusalem, there's really only one way to cross the mountains to get there. It's called the Jericho Road. And this is going to be Passover week. So in the Old Testament, God had commanded the people of Israel, they had to come to Jerusalem, the capital, 3 times a year. Everybody had to come. And this was one of them, Passover. And so everybody is leaving their homes, their fields, and they're headed to Jerusalem. And so the roads are packed, especially this road. Anybody that's coming from that whole region all has to go on the same road to cross the mountains to get to Jerusalem. So when they get to Bethany and Bethphage, from Bethphage, you can see Jerusalem from there if you're standing up by that village. So Jesus gives the disciples some instructions when they get there. He sends 2 of them ahead and says, you're going to find a colt that no one's ever ridden on. Go fetch it and bring it to me. So they do. And they throw their cloaks on it. He gets on and the whole crowd goes crazy. They're throwing down their cloaks. They're grabbing, here it doesn't say palm branches, but in the other gospels it does. Palm branches. So I need to tell you what that's about. Palm branches are the national symbol of the Israelites. So for us, it would be like everybody waving American flags. So everybody's waving palm branches. They're throwing their cloaks down, and he's headed now from Bethpage down the Mount of Olives across the Kidron Valley into Jerusalem. Now, why the spontaneous reaction of the crowd? Well, let's go back to the prophet Zechariah. The prophet Zechariah in the Old Testament had told them, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, and shout, daughter of Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and having salvation, gentle, riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. In that culture, when a king would come back, he would come riding a colt if he came riding in peace. And so Jesus, when he is riding a colt that no one's ever ridden, is claiming to be a king. He's coming in peace. It was prophesied this would happen. And the people start shouting, and they're shouting, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest. Those are from the Psalms that are said or sung at the end of Passover. They're called the Hallel Psalms, and they're all about the Messiah. And so the crowd is recognizing they have just been with Jesus in Jericho, and what had he done there? Not so blind anymore, Bartimaeus is in this crowd. They've just watched him heal yet another man. He is headed to Jerusalem for Passover, and the crowd senses it's time. It's time. Messiah is here. He is going to finally do what we knew Messiah would do when he came. And there's just one problem. They thought when Messiah came, the thing he was going to do was what? Anybody remember? We've talked about it a couple times. The first thing they thought he would do was get rid of the Romans who were in charge of their country. They wanted the Romans gone so they could be in charge of themselves. And so as Jesus is riding in, they're waving their symbols of Israel. They're shouting, here comes the Messiah. And they are ready for Jesus to go in and kick out some Romans. And let's see in next week's lesson what he does instead, and see if we can figure out the people's reaction. So I'm looking forward to answering any questions you have about today's lesson when we're done. Thanks for listening.